Kamala's audience squirms as she yaks about pachyderms. Our video of the day comes to us from the former VP who made her first major speech last night since Trump took office. And it was another classic ball of verbal vomit.
Kamala Harris just got roasted so hard NASA might as well track the smoke, and guess who lit the match? Greg Gutfeld. If you thought late night TV was dead, Gutfeld dragged it out of the grave just to launch Kamala's approval ratings into orbit. From awkward laughs to word salads, this takedown is messier than a toddler with spaghetti. This was not politics, this was performance art with a flamethrower.
He is referencing a viral video of elephants. Watch.
Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? And as soon as they felt the earth shaking beneath their feet, they got in a circle and stood next to each other to protect the most vulnerable. Think about it. What a powerful metaphor.
Yeah. It's almost like they built a wall.
Kamala walked into another public speaking event and once again left logic somewhere. Back in 2020, it felt like she was competing in a secret word salad championship. Just when we thought we were used to the fog of her delivery, along came Greg Gutfeld, armed with sarcasm sharper than a sushi knife and no patience for confusion in heels.
Kamala Harris has created her own scented candle. And just like her, it gets lit every night. She's a drunk.
Kamala seems to have suddenly remembered that we actually have a border. For she's announced she's going to the border. True, after 4 years of denying there's a border crisis. What's changed? Why the 180? Do you suppose it's the polls?
Her speech was meant to be uplifting and presidential. Instead, it turned into a clumsy dance of verbal gymnastics. People stopped taking notes and started checking their WIF. Enter Gutfeld, watching the disaster unfold like a man who stumbled into a parody of politics and decided to stay for the snacks.
Kamala Harris will visit the southern border on Friday. She said she's looking forward to finally meeting Justin Trudeau. Speaking of Harris, at the last debate, she said she was a middle-class kid. However, it appears Harris enjoyed things most middle-class kids didn't, like living abroad, private school, but some of the wealthiest places on earth. The only thing she didn't enjoy was a nanny, unlike her husband.
Greg did not need a script or teleprompter. All he needed was Kamala being herself. The mountain of recycled buzzwords and spiritual fluff practically wrote the jokes. He treated her speech like a stand-up routine, with the punchline being how seriously she wanted people to take her.
To mention, Trump is the wall candidate, not Cackle's McKnee pads. Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment, in the sense that, like, when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute. All right, we're back.
This was not commentary, it was demolition. Gutfeld performed open-heart comedy with a chainsaw. Every pause she made became a setup, every cliché a punchline. Her pauses felt like intermissions, her metaphors like riddles taped to motivational posters. His expressions were a masterclass in disbelief, eyebrows flipping, smirks loading. At one point, he looked like a man trying to remember if he left the oven on while listening to a TED Talk written by a fridge magnet.
You know, maybe they can circle around your husband, Doug, to protect vulnerable nannies. But Kamala brought that long-winded story in for a landing with this poignant lesson.
Because we know those who try to incite fear are most effective when they divide and conquer, when they separate the herd, when they try to make everyone think they are alone. But in the face of crisis, the lesson is don't scatter.
So powerful. But wouldn't it be more powerful with bongos?
Because we know those who try to incite fear are most effective.
While the media praised Kamala's inspiring message, Gutfeld stood smirking like a man watching an audition tape for a failed sitcom. Every metaphor about bridges or dreams felt like jazz hands in a blackout. Greg reacted like he was reading a GPS that spoke only in poetry. He rolled his eyes, built a trampoline of sarcasm, and bounced over every line she floated. Where she sprinkled slogans, he vacuumed them up with logic. It was less critique, more comedy roast with a doctorate.
It's hard to kind of figure out what she's saying. Why doesn't anybody ever ask a follow-up question? Like, what do you mean?
Well, that should have happened in the debate.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, it doesn't do interviews. You would not see her come onto the show. I can tell you right now.
We ask her now. Come on this show, Kamala. We'll have a box of wine.
She doesn't like it.
But Gutfeld did not stop at the speech. He unwrapped the Kamala brand like a Christmas gift, filled with socks and vague promises. The cackle, the hand gestures, the blank stares were all fair game. In one segment, he compared her appearances to interpretive mime acts, minus the silence and plus nervous laughter. It was not mean, it was precise. It was the roast version of a Michelin star meal, because you do not have to hate Kamala to admit that listening to her feels like using a dial-up connection in 2025.
Well, first I want to point out something Jessica said, that Trump began as a millionaire and now he's a billionaire. I think that makes him an expert in this. I would rather listen to somebody who began as a millionaire and is now a billionaire than somebody who doesn't have a damn clue about economics. I've never heard a candidate today more unsure of themselves on a topic than Kamala Harris. I think she's been burdened by the weight of expectations put on her by the media. I've never seen a better campaign ad for Trump. She's campaigning better for Trump than Trump is.
He layered in mismatched metaphors, awkward enthusiasm, and puzzled expressions like a soup of wet noodles. The humor was in the accuracy. For anyone who has ever watched Kamala and wondered if they missed the point, or if the point never existed, Greg offered clarity. Millions watched not for answers but for validation. That Kamala gives speeches like she is assembling IKEA furniture blindfolded, and Gutfeld stood there holding the Allen key saying something's missing.
Go back to you, Vice President Harris. You flip-flopped on a lot of issues. How can voters be sure you won't keep doing that if you're elected?
Look, again, I come from a middle-class family, right? My values have never changed on that, right? I've talked about my grass being green for quite some time now. All right, and as a former, prosecutor and former state attorney general and, Willie Brown's ex, shout out to my brothers and sisters, right?
He even dissected her Twitter feed, a gold mine of motivational confusion. One tweet read like it was written by Pinterest and spell-checked by a fortune cookie. Gutfeld read it like a bedtime story for tired voters. Somewhere a PR intern cried, but he did not stop at tweets. He painted Kamala as the byproduct of an administration so desperate for inspiration, they handed the MIC to someone who speaks in riddles. His sarcasm came not from hate, but from stunned disbelief.
Yo, but what about Kamala? Well, just like the corpse, it's now okay to talk about how terrible the clown was too. Because before it would have been career suicide to spill the beans and commit an act of actual journalism. Ripping on Kamala now is about as risky as wearing leather chaps to a pride parade. Right, Dr. Drew?
He did not shout, he did not rant, he simply stared into the camera, blinked slowly, and let the nonsense speak for itself. It was funnier than any joke, but of course not everyone laughed. The pearl clutchers marched out claiming Greg was disrespecting public office, as if Kamala had not already done that by explaining democracy like a yoga teacher decoding Mercury in retrograde.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future.
That's some bad weed. Generally, when people get high, they actually have some interesting thoughts. Not her.
The rest of us were relieved someone finally said it. Kamala speeches feel like a TED Talk crashed into a poetry slam. They are not profound, they are confusing. Gutfeld turned that collective cringe into comedy therapy. He showed that Kamala is not hard to parody because she is political, she is hard to parody because the parody writes itself. He did not exaggerate, reality was absurd enough.
So paranoid about her public behavior, they held a fake party ahead of a DC dinner in 2022. Her aides even considered serving wine so she could practice with a glass or two, but decided not to. Good call. The only time Kamala stops after 2 glasses is when she switches to chugging Listerine.
In the end, Kamala still fumbled metaphors like a drunk magician, and Gutfeld stood on the sidelines, popcorn in hand, conducting a symphony of satire using her own notes. He turned confusion into comedy gold and did it with a smirk and sharp wit, because if there is anything funnier than a Kamala speech, it is. Watching Greg Gutfeld survive one with his sanity and sarcasm intact.